Krishabasta Bhuttale Shimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Govani Pachayane Nivrishisha Shunyavari Pesatari Satarine Vanchakapa Tuvasa Kripa Sinuvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Bhavanityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Srivasadi Go Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare. Yeah, so welcome everybody for our discussion today. So maybe those who are able to sit on the computer, would be nice if you switch on your video so we can see your smiling faces. It makes the whole experience more personal, and I have the feeling I'm actually talking to somebody here and addressing some people and not just some black holes. Yeah, so for those who join us the first time, let me introduce you to our Elder Prabhu, who is our technical facilitator. So usually, we work like this, that I present some points, and this will just be a once-off session, not like all the other seminars we had, that there were, several parts, 3 parts or 5 parts. So this is just a little once-off session. So it will be one topic. And usually I prefer if you write the questions to Elder Prabhu in the chat. But let's see, if we are just a small group, maybe we can also take spontaneously the questions, as they come. Usually I don't like to so much be interrupted while I'm presenting something. So better if we can keep the question and answer session more for the end, like that. Yeah, so the topic of Prajalpa, it is a very important one, because I'm sure we have all heard it so many times, how detrimental Prajalpa is, to our spiritual practice. But I think the problem is that we don't even realize how much Prajalpa we talk every day. We're not conscious of it. We think this is, Vaishnava association. We have Sadhu Sangha here. We're talking to devotees, but we are not even conscious of how much our talk is actually falling into the category of Prajalpa, useless talk, unnecessary talk, detrimental talk, And as Prabhupada was always saying, before becoming Krishna conscious, we first have to become conscious. So today, this session, we want to dedicate, to this endeavor of becoming more conscious of our speech. So, we may know first verse in Nectar of Instruction, Vacho Vegamana Sakura Vegam, Jiva Vegam Upasta Vegam. So, one who can control the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and so on. So this urge to speak, this has to be controlled. It's one of the main urges. The tongue, belly, genitals, we say they're all in one line. And it starts, if we want to control the senses, it starts actually with controlling the tongue. And the tongue, of course, has 2 functions: to eat and to speak. So both these urges have to be controlled, and this requires conscious endeavor. And also Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami lists, the 6 unfavorable things. Prajalpa niyamaka. So there we have the Prajalpa again, that this is one of the 6 things in devotional practice which actually obstruct and disturb our progress. So, and yes, let us come back to the point of, the activities of the tongue. So the tongue has the function to eat. So also if we eat too much, this is also one of the 6 impediments in devotional life, eating too much. And it is interesting, if when we eat too much, then there will be toxins accumulating in the gross body. And that's why it is often recommended to fast every now and again, just to get rid of a few toxins, to detoxify the gross body. So a similar thing actually takes place when we talk too much. That develops toxins in the subtle body. And I mean, I also like to conduct holy name retreats in various parts of the world. So there we often, we explain that actually the holy name carries an echo called Dvani. And this still works on our heart even after we chant. We can still feel this echo of the holy name, having an effect on our heart. We may all have that experience after a wonderful kirtan or a very nice katha. We feel a very nice and warm feeling in the heart, and we feel just like maybe going for a little walk and still chanting a little bit more or something, and allowing this echo of this experience and impression to still continue working on our heart. So one thing that really destroys this echo, which Krishna Katha and the holy name carry, is really Prajalpa. It is nonsense talk. So that immediately switches on the mundane mind again and destroys this, transcendental echo which the holy name carries. So that's why on the holy name retreats, I always explain, yes, so as we sometimes have some fasting to detoxify our gross body, in the same way, it is also helpful to just be quiet for one day, to have a mauna vrata. And on the holy name retreats, we usually do this. We have, usually as a rule, we have it for 3 days. And the second day, we usually call a mauna vrata, where we don't talk. Of course, the seminar still goes on as usual. But otherwise, outside of the seminar, there is no talking, no private personal talking. We start this early in the morning, when we get up, and 24 hours till the next morning, basically. So even during prasadam, no talking. And this is always my favorite day because it is so wonderful, just to have that silence, and for some people, this is so difficult. People forget. And then they're talking, oh, sorry, yes, Mauna Vrata, I almost forgot, So my God, we don't realize how difficult it is to just control the tongue for one day and just not talk anything, because this urge to talk is just so prominent, so powerful. So of course, we are not fabricating here some new process that we don't talk. Of course, to control the tongue and the speech is by talking Krishna Katha, of course, as it is for eating, you're learning to control the tongue. We do that by eating Krishna Prasad. But because we so often, we talk so much nonsense, You know, that's why just to become more conscious of our speech, it is indeed helpful to, yeah, sometimes just have a bit of a break and detoxify the subtle body of the mind, you know, by just not speaking. And especially in the Holy Name retreats, we have that experience that it is actually a powerful means to turn more within and be more introspective and do more some internal work, you know. So this can be a powerful experience, you know. So, but to go back to Prajalpa, I do want to read you 2 nice episodes from Kurma Prabhu's book about Prabhupada in Australia. The book is called The Transcendental Adventure. And there are 2 very nice little episodes because Prabhupada used to go so mad at devotees speaking Prajalpa. He used to be very heavy on this and again remind the devotees. So just to begin with, I would like to read this to you. So the first little episode, this was in Melbourne. I think it was in 75 or something. I didn't write this down here. But yeah, I will read you. So Kurma Prabhu describes, behind Srila Prabhupada's room was a tiny 2-meter square kitchenette. There, each day, Chitralekha would prepare rasagulas for Prabhupada, who ate the sweets daily with his breakfast. Around mid-morning, Upendra would start to prepare Prabhupada's lunch. A couple of devotees entered the kitchen while Upendra was cooking. Before too long, Upendra, as was his sometimes frivolous habit, had reduced the conversation to a mundane gossip session. After the devotees left the kitchen, Prabhupada from his adjoining room suddenly called for Upendra in an angry voice. Upendra, come in here. Upendra ran in. Prabhupada looked disturbed. Yes, Srila Prabhupada, what were you doing? I was just talking to some devotees in the kitchen. Prabhupada shook his head in disgust. Gossip. It will destroy this movement. After a few moments, Prabhupada dismissed Upendra, who, visibly shaken, offered his obeisances and left the room. And Chitralekha shares, Upendra immediately came downstairs and related the whole incident. He was mortified, as usual, from Prabhupada's chastisement. I guess he needed it because Upendra loved to gossip. I don't know whether Upendra was able to take the lesson to heart, but I certainly did. From that day, I made a conscious effort never to gossip about devotees. So this is the first little episode. So that's where I got this title for this session. You know, gossip, it will destroy this movement. So it is actually one of Prabhupada's statements, you know. So, and the second one is also involving Upendra again. So this was also in Melbourne in Australia. Buddhimanta, a tall young American devotee, arrived from India early in the afternoon. Madhudvisha Swami had requested him to assist the Sydney devotees in book distribution. Later, as Srila Prabhupada said in his quarters, he overheard Upendra gossiping in the adjoining room. Prabhupada called to Upendra, who entered shamefaced. You were laughing? Yes. Gossiping? Upendra responded coyly. Is talking about other devotees gossiping, Srila Prabhupada? Yes. Yes, I was gossiping. Prabhupada was concerned for his disciples' well-being. Again, he chastised Upendra. This devotee, that devotee, life is short. Do not waste your time uselessly. Prabhupada directed Upendra to get a copy of the Srimad Bhagavatam from the bookshelf and read. When two devotees come together, they should discuss Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada was speaking more softly now. Do you remember when you used to memorize the Bhagavatam verses? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Upendra offered an excuse. Oh, Srila Prabhupada, my mind is so lazy. Prabhupada didn't agree. No, you're not lazy. You're just misdirecting your energies. Before Upendra left the room, Prabhupada spoke at length about the debilitating effects of Prajalpa, mundane talk, on a devotee's spiritual progress. He asked that Upendra repeat the instructions to those devotees with whom he had just spoken so frivolously, and requested him to once again take up learning Sanskrit verses. Yeah, so these are two nice, very, very nice episodes, which illustrate how heavy Prabhupada was about this. And the second one, yes, this Buddhimanta, he just had come from India. So usually when especially in such situations when people come from somewhere, from India, from festival or something. So there's always talking, this devotee, that devotee, what's the news, and so this all is already part of Prajalpa. It falls into the category of Prajalpa. So we are not even conscious of this. We don't realize how much of our daily talk, really falls into this category. And as Prabhupada is pointing out, it's actually a waste of time. It really is. It's a waste of time. Life is short. We should use every moment in a meaningful way in Krishna service, talking about Krishna Katha. And I guess we can say, because we don't have that natural inclination and attraction to talk Krishna Katha, that's why we need to arrange programs, That's why we have the Bhagavatam lecture, the Bhagavad Gita lecture. It actually is meant to help us cultivate this mood of associating on that platform, of getting together and sharing and speaking and inquiring from each other. This is actually the way how Vaishnavas should associate, as Prabhupada said, when two devotees meet, they should actually discuss Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, or at least they should really speak about service or something, really things related to Krishna consciousness, and not just this devotee, that devotee, what's the news, and so on, so yes. Yeah, so also we have the nice book called Bhakti-loka by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and there he actually describes these same 6 faults that destroy bhakti. So in that book, there is a chapter about Prajalpa. And he gives, 6, how many is it? 1, 2, 3, let me see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, 8. 8 types of categories of Prajalpa, just for us to, become more conscious what Prajalpa all is, And, he makes this point in the beginning, saying that actually because today in general, people are not God conscious. They're more and more godless. So naturally, the talk will also be godless talk. That's what we are surrounded by, Again, this subtle influence of our surroundings, of the culture around us, influences us so strongly. We are so programmed by our surroundings. We are a product of our surroundings. So even in that regard, you know, because this is what people engage in, godless talk. It's all Prajalpa, actually, you know, in general. So naturally, we bring that in our spiritual practice and in our Krishna consciousness, and we don't even realize, we think it is normal, you know. Yeah, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he lists these different kinds of types of Prajalpa. So the first one is useless talk. Useless talk. So he includes even newspaper, you know, actually under useless talk. And he even says actually for practicing devotees, you know, to read the newspaper is a great loss. He makes that statement, you know. So of course, this could be argued, you know, that we say, well, maybe we should know a little bit what is going on in the world, especially in these times of Corona or something. You're kind of almost forced to keep a little bit up to date what's going on. But I remember from my own life, for many years, I never read the newspaper. I didn't know what was going on. And I only started with this when the war, to read the news, when the war in Ukraine started. This is about 7 years ago or something, you know, because I go there regularly for preaching, and then devotees were saying, what, you're going to Ukraine? Don't you know there's war? You know, so I thought, okay, maybe I should inform myself a little bit what's going on in the world. And I have to admit, now where I am, you know, regularly looking at the news, I can feel a change in my consciousness. It's definitely there, you know, the mind is somehow more burdened with all kinds of, worldly matters and, you know, and so on. So I'm often thinking, oh, the old days where I didn't even know what was going on in the world, they were in many ways just so much more conducive to spiritual life, you know, because it clutters the mind with all kinds of mundane topics and impressions, you know. And we also have this nice little story where Prabhupada is traveling on the plane and devotees are reading the Time magazine, his disciples who are traveling with him. So Prabhupada is asking, oh, let me have a look at this Time magazine. You know, so Prabhupada is flicking through it, looking at it, and then he gives it back to the devotees and he says, actually, devotees should not read this. And he adds, this makes the world look so real. That was his comment. It makes the world look so real, you know. So the more we absorb ourselves in all these news and this and that, and oh my God, even now with the corona thing, you can see, you know, there's so much, you know, controversial issues and people get all heated up about it, you know, and the same polarizing, you know, effect which is going on in the society there, that some are completely against it, some are for it, this vaccination. Oh my God, you know, it brings only negativity and tensions, and ultimately it's all part of the illusory reality of the, you know, crazy circus, you know, just the nonsensical stage performance, how Prabhupada calls life in the material world. It's a nonsensical stage performance. You know, every life is just, we play our role, run around there, thinking ourselves to be, yes, German woman, Indian man, this, that, you know, but then at death, curtain closes, show is over. It's not actual reality. It's all part of the nonsensical stage performance, crazy circus. So that's why Prabhupada said, you know, reading this Time magazine or any other newspaper, it makes the world look so real. Then, you know, absorbing the mind, and that kind of, discussions, you start thinking that's reality, and you take it for real. Whereas when we absorb our mind in Shastra and Krishna conscious discussions, then that becomes reality. And that's the world which is real for us, and everything else is just part of the nonsensical stage performance. So yeah, that's why even such things as, well, let's maybe balance it a bit and say, if we get too absorbed in these worldly affairs and news, then, or we can say, the more we get absorbed in it, the more time we spend, checking out all these kind of affairs which are going on there in the material world, the more we enter that reality and we take that to be real. So one has to be very careful, because especially now through internet, my God, newspapers already outdated way of receiving news. I mean, who reads a newspaper these days? It's hardly anybody. But through internet, you have so much access to so much Prajalpa. My God, just at a click, on the computer, you get it all. Yes. So we have to be mindful. We have to be careful. And we should really keep things to bare minimum, just quickly checking out, what is really relevant for our service, for our community or something. If we are in a leading position, all right, then we may have to really know what's going on. But otherwise, actually no need. And I've really experienced it in my own life, how it actually does affect the consciousness, if we start getting, absorbed in these things, Yes. So then the second category, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur lists in the book Bhakti Loka, he talks about arguments being another type of Prajalpa arguments, and basically arguments, it's wasting the mind's strength, and it only increases restlessness and anger and aggression and so on, and even including also arguments which are based on philosophical topics, that we argue over this, over that, in philosophical ways, So it is also useless waste of time, actually, And very often we can actually find that the root cause of all these kinds of prajalpas, most of them in any case, there is actually that element of envy there. We will get to this later also, especially when we come to criticizing. But even arguments, that there is this envy there, this pride, this brings about this tendency for deriving pleasure in arguing, that we want to be right, and show off and put others down and so on, So the root cause, this is why it also is so detrimental and almost poisoning our spiritual practice, because it feeds, all these anarthas, these negative things which we actually want to get rid of, but it magnifies them, by engaging in arguments and so on and so on, So, yeah, so, this tendency for quarreling, and, this is definitely, a completely, detrimental element, part of Prajalpa, Yes. So as devotees, we should stay away from this, because it only ignites the false ego, really, and yeah, feeds all kinds of negative tendencies, Yeah, so then the next one is gossip. As we were reading the nice little stories there from Prabhupada, so talking about others without any reason, this is, this is just mundane. It's gossip. It's Prajalpa. Just talking what he said, what she said, what he did. Oh, have you heard already? This person got married. This person got divorced, and the latest news. Oh my God, what for? What for? And very easily, when we like to talk about others, if we are actually really reflecting and we are introspective, we can also recognize that we want to, in a subtle way, we want to establish our own superiority, our own reputation, especially when we talk negative about others, that we want to establish ourselves in a higher position. Or we want to show off that we are the ones who know the news, Oh, you don't know? Well, I know. Listen to this. So we want to show, that we are superior. We may be some confidential associate of somebody, and that's why that person told us something, but he didn't tell you. So I'm the one who knows the big news, and I'm the first one who gives it to you, and so on. There's all kinds of subtle ways of actually showing off, Yes. So we have to be very, very introspective and analyze really what is actually going on there when we catch ourselves, engaging in these activities, So I mean, talking about others, we can say this is actually only if we have, a certain position, if we are in charge of devotees, and then in a well-wishing way, we discuss maybe with another senior devotees that person's problems or that person's behavior or something, So actually only, guru, sadhu, diksha, shiksha, guru, sadhus, senior devotees, that they are allowed, they have some good reason to talk about others, But unless we are in such a position, we have no right even to talk about others, and definitely not in a negative and unfavorable way or something, This is really, not conducive for a spiritual life, Yeah. So, but I mean, how often do we engage in this, just talking about other people, Yes. And we try to make ourselves feel better by talking bad about others, It's a very, very common thing, Yes. Then, we also, the next one is debating. This is also actually falling into the category of Prajalpa, because when we debate, as a rule, there is behind it this desire to win the debate. We are actually engaging in an ego battle there. Who is right, who is wrong. So, and that is highly contaminating. Yes, my God. I mean, very often these things also, the debating also takes place over the internet. I'm sure we may have all experienced such situations. Let's say somebody is making some statement, maybe even concerning us or our preaching or our service or whatever. They make a statement, many people hear it or read it, you know, on Facebook or on some forum. So then we think, well, I have to respond to this. I cannot just be quiet, you know, I have to say something about this, otherwise people take this seriously, you know, so I have to put this right. So then we respond to it. So, and then what happens? You know, the others take our answer, you know, twist it around, make a weapon out of it and throw it back at us, you know. So, and then again, okay, so what am I going to do now? Well, if I'm just quiet, you know, then everybody thinks that's the truth. So, okay, you know, again, we respond and same thing goes on. And it's just never ending, never ending. Oh my God. And you can feel your heart just, you know, is full of anger and aggression and yeah, resentment and, oh, you know, yeah, it's a very, you know, ugly feeling, the ugly taste of these kind of exchanges you have in your heart. And this is exactly the effect of the false ego, actually. The false ego has this contaminating effect that you have a really nasty and ugly feeling in your heart. And sometimes it takes days to shake it off, you know. The ego hangs onto it and the whole discussion is still going back and forwards in your mind, and then he said this and I said this and you just can't shake it off. You can't let go of it. It just continues going around in your mind in circles. This is always a sign of false ego, you know, if we can't let go of some dialogue and it continues going around in our mind, you know. So in this debating, this really feeds this tendency, you know. And the problem is that in these debates, there is, you know, the people involved that don't have that serious desire to find out the truth. They're not even eager to hear, you know, they just want to get their message out and their argument, and they want to win the debate. So that's why these kind of discussions, they're completely useless, highly contaminating. It just really, you know, agitates the mind and the ego, and so contaminating for everybody involved, you know. So as devotees, we should not engage in this, you know. I mean, if some people want to pull us into such kind of exchanges, best to just say, okay, Hare Krishna Prabhu, it's okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, just to pull out, no use, you know, no use to continue in these kind of things, because there's no end to it. It goes on and on and on, and no matter what you say, you know, the other side always has some, you know, something to say and twist things around and make something different out of what you were saying. And no, useless waste of time, highly contaminating, you know. Yeah, so good to remember this, because very often these things go on over the internet, you know, and then there's also such passion there with the internet that you can just, you know, say things to people through the internet which you face to face would never say to the person, you know. But because it's through internet, you get away with it, and that there's this natural, you know, inhibition, you know, is yeah, blocked. It's taken away. You know, so I've witnessed how young bhaktas are saying ridiculous things to Maharajas over internet. You know, I mean, this is completely, you know, we destroy our whole spiritual life with this kind of things, you know. So yeah, we have to be very, very careful in this, you know. Yeah. Fault finding is another very common form of prajalpa, you know. We like to find faults in others, and the root cause of that tendency is also, again, envy, you know. Envy basically comes about through sense enjoyment. You know, if the desire for sense enjoyment is there, sense gratification and envy always goes hand in hand. As soon as the goal is sense gratification, then envy comes in, because we want to be the one who enjoys the most. And as soon as we see somebody, you know, else there who maybe also has some good qualities or something to offer, you know, then we get envious. Oh, that person may be better than we are. And interestingly, envy doesn't only manifest towards people who have something which we don't have, but I like to understand envy as a kind of consciousness. And this consciousness, it's a state of heart, actually, envy. It's a state of heart, and it comes out in any relationship, towards seniors, towards equals, even towards juniors, you know, like envy towards seniors very often comes out in fault finding, that we want to diminish that person's position by finding some faults. You know, let us imagine, you know, a person gives a lecture and a friend says to us, oh, it was a nice lecture, wasn't it? And then we say, yeah, it was all right, but it was not so Shastric. He didn't quote so many verses. And so we find some fault to reduce his position. In other words, we try to say, actually, if I had given the lecture, I would have, you know, quoted so many more verses. So it was all right, but not so Shastric, and so on. Or kirtan, somebody leads a kirtan, you know, and a friend says, oh, this was a nice kirtan. And then we have this urge, you know, to find some fault there. Yeah, it was all right, but the melody was not so nice, and he sang off tune, and his madanga playing was also not so good. And so we find some fault there, just to reduce the person's position, you know. Oh, we do this a lot, you know, even if it is true. You know, even if, you know, his tune was not so good or the class was not so Shastric, just the fact that we have this urge to express that actually shows envy. Yes. We can, you know, we have to be introspective and look in our hearts, and then we can recognize that, you know, it takes a lot of introspection, you know, to actually catch ourselves doing these things, you know. Very often they all go on unnoticed, undiscovered, you know, because we are not so conscious and mindful of these things, you know. And also often when we, you know, when we find faults, we actually project our own bad habits into others, you know, our own bad qualities we always see in others, you know. So this also takes place when we find faults, you know. Yeah, and I mean envy, even in, you know, in connection with equals, there also comes this rivalry and the competition, you know. We try to, yeah, the mood is, okay, we are equals, but actually I am superior. So we try and find some ways how to establish our superiority by diminishing the other person's position and qualities and so on, you know. And even towards juniors, envy also manifests by, you know, using our position to really put the other person down, heavily chastising them, always correcting them harshly all the time. You know, these things, they may very well be a sign of envy, you know, that we use our superior position to very clearly establish that, yes, we are senior, and we, in a subtle way, we enjoy this seniority, you know, by putting others down. So envy comes out in all, you know, in all relationships, actually, you know, that we use the relationship to establish our superiority. That is a sign of envy, you know, and we minimize the importance of others and so on, you know. And another category of Prajalpa is also speaking falsehoods, fake news, you know, just creating some rumors and so this is also a very, very common thing these days, even in the outside societies. Oh my God, again, the internet, my God, it has, of course, a little good side. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to associate here. So there is some little good side. But if we cannot use it with really controlled mind and senses, we invite so many negative things. Actually, the negative side is bigger than the positive side with all these things, because even in today's society, you see how this internet is used for so many, terrorist activities and all kinds of negative propaganda, and just, feeding people's hate and anger and envy and greed, and oh my God, and people cannot even control it anymore, so this is a big thing, so fake news in the outside world, oh my God, creates so much disturbance, so much confusion, and also within ISKCON, of course, we all have these tendencies also coming into our society, just, creating all kinds of wrong information there and passing it on, distributing it, and it creates only anger, hatred, misunderstandings, envy, conflicts, so many things, Yes. Yeah, I mean, we can really say, because Prabhupada says, Prajalpa, it will destroy this movement. So why is he saying this? Because it is a fact. The biggest danger to Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement is not coming from outside, it's coming from within. The outside attacks and dangers, they usually inspire devotees to preach, They are not detrimental. That's just, we can see them as Krishna's ways to keeping us on our toes, that we fight and we preach, and but the attacks from within, this is what weakens Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement immensely. And it's a fact, most conflicts between devotees, the root cause is some form of Prajalpa, and that really, it destroys our faith, actually. This is one of the main effects of Prajalpa, apart from the effect of, creating all this negativity and heating, all kinds of anger and envy and ego things, boosting the ego and so on. But also hearing all kinds of nonsense talk really destroys our faith in the process of Krishna consciousness. Yes. That's one of the main ways how our faith is destroyed, through Prajalpa. That's another good reason why to really stay away from it, Yes. And I mean, faith is really one of the main and foremost, things we have to actually make advancement. Prabhupada mentions that in one purport in the Bhagavad Gita, that it is actually only by faith that a devotee can make advancement. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur also illustrates that he compares faith of a new devotee to a newborn baby girl. So baby girls are usually a little weaker than baby boys. So a newborn baby girl is completely helpless. It is completely helplessly dependent on the protection and care and nourishment of the mother. So, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur says this is what our faith is like in the beginning of our devotional life. It is very tender and very, easily can be destroyed, very, very weak, you know. So it needs to be protected and nourished. So, you know, especially when we are involved in caring for young devotees, the essence, we can say, the essence of devotee care is actually to protect and nourish a devotee's faith in Prabhupada, in the holy name, in the process of devotional service. That's the essence of caring for devotees, not only for young devotees, but for all devotees. That we should always, you know, have this vision that we have to care and protect and nourish, you know, people's faith in the process of devotional service. So, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says faith is like the currency by which we purchase Krishna. So that's why unflinching faith in Krishna, in the holy name, in Guru, this is completely necessary for progress in devotional life. You know, so because that's the currency which purchases Krishna. So, and we can even see this in our mundane relationships. You know, if we have a friend and he or she really has great faith in us, you know, that conquers our heart, that obliges us, you know, to respond in a favorable way, you know. So same thing is there with Krishna, you know. So yes, that's why, you know, we have to do everything not to undermine devotees' faith or destroy devotees' faith. And, you know, by saying anything negative, even, I mean, let's say, even in a practical example, when a young devotee says to us, oh, I find such and such Prabhu so inspiring, you know, but we may know actually, yeah, all right, such and such Prabhu, you know, he's got his issues. He's not that, you know, elevated as this young devotee may think, you know, because as a new devotee, you know, we cannot actually really understand who is elevated and who is not elevated. I once heard this comment in a class, you know, that a new devotee thinks an elevated devotee to be neophyte and a neophyte devotee to be elevated. That's the vision of a new devotee, you know. A new devotee thinks a humble and meek devotee, he's a neophyte, he thinks. And the person who can make an impressive show, oh, he must be very senior, you know. So that's the vision of a neophyte devotee. So let's say, you know, a young devotee takes, you know, another person as very inspiring. So even if we know actually this person is not so, you know, exemplary in his activities and so on, but we should never say this. You know, we should not respond, oh, actually, you know, by the way, I know so many things about this person which you may not know and you better be careful or something. No, we should not make such comments because it undermines the devotee's faith, you know. So as long as this person is inspiring that person, he's doing his job, you know. He's doing what he should be doing. He's giving inspiration. So, and then if we also try and elevate this person and uplift him, then sooner or later he will come to the point where he can discriminate more and he will realize himself, oh, actually, maybe I better move on to somebody else to really inspire me further, you know. So that's the way to act in such situations, but not to say anything about this person, you know, and definitely never, ever to say any negative thing about a person's guru, you know. This I also sometimes come across, that people write me messages and ask for guidance, and I say, oh, I want to accept such and such person as guru, but then my friend says, actually, have you read this and that? This person is actually not so exemplary and this and that, and he's got some whatever, so I mean, this is terrible. This is horrible. It's not our position to interfere there. This is between the person and Krishna, who he accepts as guru, and our opinion, who we would accept or we did accept. And we cannot impose this on other people and make negative comments about, senior devotees. I mean, this is terrible, but all these things are going on, unfortunately. Yes. So then another category of Prajalpa is to blaspheme devotees. This creates great inauspiciousness. All virtues are destroyed, through blaspheming devotees. As we know, it's the first offense and of the 10 offenses to chanting the holy name, to blaspheme devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord. So now the interesting thing is that we often don't even realize what blasphemy means, And there is a nice quote which our Sridhar Swami, the commentator on the Bhagavatam, not Prabhupada disciple Sridhar Swami, but the Sridhar Swami who Prabhupada often quotes on when he writes his purports, who was giving commentaries to the Bhagavatam. He actually says, whether it is true or not, narrating the faults of a devotee constitutes blasphemy. Wow, we often don't realize that, So no matter whether it's true or not, just talking about devotees' faults is actually blaspheming. Yes, even if it's true. But we often think, the fact that it is true that a person has a fault, that gives us the right to talk about it because it's true. Can't I say the truth? What is that? That's what we think. I mean, it also took me many years to realize, I have to say this honestly, it took me many years to realize that even if it's true that a person has certain faults, it's not our right. We don't have a right to talk about it. And again, just the fact that we like to talk about it shows that we are envious, and it actually falls into the category of blaspheming devotees. Yes. So I mean, we have to be very, very careful, very careful. Yes. The tongue, is so uncontrolled, and we talk so much about other devotees' negative qualities, and we criticize and so on. So this, we have to be very, very careful, Yeah. So, and then the last form of Prajalpa is worldly talk, meaning talking about some worldly matters, And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, worldly talk is only okay if it is in connection somehow with devotional life, like archaeology or biology, astrology, geography. If it is somehow connected really, with Krishna consciousness, if we talk about things because we use it and connect it somehow with preaching, with devotional service, Krishna consciousness. So then, all right, it is not worldly talk, But just talk about all kinds of worldly matters, without any deeper reason, just to find pleasure in discussing some issues there, or even some worldly knowledge, for the sake of worldly knowledge, without any connection to Krishna consciousness. This is also worldly talk. It's Prajalpa. Yes. Yeah, and I mean, before I open for questions, I want to just quickly also mention a few little rules of Vaishnava etiquette, which we also very often, we are not conscious and mindful of them, For example, the etiquette, the Vaishnava etiquette tells us that we should never ever get involved in any kind of disagreements which may be going on higher levels. It's not our business. We are not meant to take sides, Yes, it's not our position to discuss and take sides, But how often do we do this? My God, My God, yes. Some kind of disagreements between senior devotees, even in our own communities, or even on higher levels of the GBC. I remember when this, this whole topic of female Diksha Guru, whether ladies are allowed to initiate or not, was going on in a more heated way. Often people were asking me, so what's your opinion? I'm sorry, it's none of my business really, it's going on a higher level. Who am I to have some opinion here or something, No, it's, especially taking sides, who is right, who is wrong. And this is against Vaishnava etiquette. It's actually apparat, Yes. And again, these things, they create so much conflict and negativity and yes. Yeah, so especially if there's some faults, and it's not our position to talk about, and only even just talking about negative qualities of people, it just magnifies negativity. That's the point, by churning all kinds of negative qualities or whatever took place, it only increases negativity. It's not uplifting for anybody, not uplifting for the person who's got the negative quality, not uplifting for us, not uplifting for others who hear it. It only magnifies negativity. So, unless we serve as a mentor or a counselor, and we have a one-to-one session, and that person has trust and faith in us, and it is our service to, point out to this person where they're going wrong and where they may have to do some internal work or something, it is not our position to talk about, negative qualities or faults which others have. And definitely not if it is going on a senior level, Yes. Yeah. So, this whole, in the material world, there's this freedom of speech and freedom of opinion and so on, but yes, in spiritual life, we have to be a little careful, So we have to really see, whether it is our position, and passing judgments on senior devotees. This is a no-no. Yes, not our position, Yes. Also, one more little funny story. When Prabhupada was in this world, the technology of the telex machine came out. So this is, of course, completely outdated. This was the thing before the fax machine was telex, So, and devotees were all happily showing Prabhupada, oh, look, we have this telex machine and so on, you know. And then they asked Prabhupada, oh, maybe every temple should have this telex machine, you know. And then Prabhupada writes this letter to Buddhas in 1977. And he says, the installing of telex communications for our main temples is not required. Then they will gossip more through the telex. So that was Prabhupada's, advice. No need for telex machine. Then we can gossip, we can talk Prajalpa all over the world, Like this, at least it is reduced to our immediate environment where we talk nonsense. But with telex, all over the world. So sometimes I'm wondering what Prabhupada would say about the internet, and Facebook and all these things, because really so much Prajalpa is going on, through the media. So much Prajalpa, my God, Yes. All right, so let us see what kind of questions we have. Has anybody sent in some questions, Elder Prabhu?
Yes, we have one question.
Okay, and then we go to the hands which are lifted here also. So let's first have a look at the written question.
Krishna Dhandas Nasik asks, in Ocean of Mercy book by Bhakti Charu Swami, he mentions that in last days Srila Prabhupada used it to scroll over newspapers. Can devotees do that for just the updates?
Say it again. What did he do with the newspapers? I didn't catch that word.
Use it to scroll over newspapers.
Scroll.
I think, yeah.
So you, if I understand correctly, it's just quickly glancing through it, right? Yeah, I mean, see, as I'm saying, I'm not here to make any hard and fast rules, what we can do and what not. Ultimately, this is a personal decision, I'm just trying to give the principle. So as I mentioned, the principle is the more we absorb our minds in worldly news, the more we take that to be actual reality. As Prabhupada said, it makes this world look so real, So, and then it depends on us, and our positions to just quickly scroll through it and just quickly glance, for a few minutes if there's something really important for us to know. All right, obviously, the less time we spend with these kind of matters, the less impact it has on our consciousness, But the more we delve into this and we look all kinds of stuff there and this and that, I mean, internet, my God, you can look up so many things. You have access to so much stuff, And that has to be really dealt with controlled senses and mind. Otherwise, it's also a time thief. It steals our time. My God, we only notice this when we are somehow in a situation where all of a sudden there's no internet. The internet is down, no internet. Oh, people almost have nothing to do, they don't know what to do with themselves. Yes. So, and then we realize, how we are so addicted to this internet. And a lot of it is just Prajalpa. I mean, my humble request to all of our participants and also those who listen to the recordings later, let's be a little mindful, a little conscious. Let's consciously observe ourselves, how much time we actually spend with all these different kinds of Prajalpa. We first have to make the diagnosis here. We have to assess ourselves. And only then we can actually say, okay, looks like I really have to change something here in my life, But unless we we come to this point of actually being conscious of our bad habits, you know, then what is the inspiration to change something? Then we think, oh, well, everything is fine, you know, I'm doing what I'm meant to do and everything is fine, you know, we don't even realize. But just to become conscious and mindful of this, and this is the whole purpose why I'm giving this little presentation, just to raise awareness, you know, that we really look at our lives, how much time we spend. And I mean, sometimes, you know, I don't say much in these situations, but sometimes I'm amazed what devotees all know, you know, and then they say, oh yeah, I read this on the internet and that on the internet. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, that's how you pass your time, you know, by looking up all kinds of stuff, you know, which is not so connected with Krishna consciousness and, you know, but people really delve into all kinds of issues and topics and information and this and that. Oh my God, you know, and it steals the time. Oh, completely, you know. Yes. Yes, but ultimately everybody has to decide this themselves. And as I mentioned, you know, especially if we are in a leading position or if we're a traveling preacher, of course, it's not bad to know whether there's some war starting somewhere or something before we fly there. Or now Corona times, we have to be up to date, you know, what the restrictions are and where we can travel and so on. This is unavoidable. But yeah, I mean, we have to be mindful and conscious that we keep it to a bare minimum, you know? That's my point. Okay, what else? Any other questions there? Where was that blue hand there before we had?
That devotee
Huh?
right now offline for some reason, maybe some issues with connection. So we will continue with.
Okay, so what other questions do we have?
Mrinalini Radhikadasi asks, if senior devotees are gossiping, how should we respond?
Okay, well, as we were saying, it's not our position to, you know, definitely not our position to point this out to seniors, to try and instruct them. Not our position. You know, we have to be very careful, even within our mind, that we don't pass judgments and we criticize, you know, because that also is contaminating for our consciousness, you know. So if senior devotees gossip, well, you know, there's different ways how we can deal in such a situation, that we just avoid taking part in it, you know, but in a humble and polite way, not in a rude way or something, but humble and polite, and just, keeping a distance. I mean, ultimately we can say this is a general principle and topic, you know, that we do have to choose our association. You know, we have to discriminate whose association to take and who is not to take. We cannot just say, oh, everybody is a Vaishnava, it doesn't matter who we associate. No, we do have to discriminate. But first of all, we do this quietly in our heart. We don't talk about things loudly and propagate this and broadcast it, but we do this quietly in our heart. And we always have the mood, I am not advanced enough to associate with this devotee. So we make it our problem. If I was a pure devotee, then I could counteract that negativity, whatever it may be, whether it's envy or Prajalpa or whatever it may be. So if I was a pure devotee, then my presence would counteract that, or it would not affect me. But because I'm not such a pure devotee, I'm not so advanced, that's why it is better for me to keep a distance. So we see it as our problem, not as their problem, you know, like that. So I mean, we do have to discriminate, you know, with whom we have closer and more intimate exchanges and association. Yeah, so, but we should always make it our problem and not find faults and criticize and so on, you know. And also, I mean, Prabhupada always gave this example of a hospital. ISKCON is like a hospital. So in the hospital, you have so many diseased people, you know, with all kinds of symptoms. Some patient has this symptom, some patient has that symptom. So there should be a mood of compassion and understanding. Okay, yeah, so we all have our issues. We all have our things to work on, you know, and better to look at our issues where we have to work on it and not at other people's issues there. It's not our position, you know, so, but we still have to respect each other nevertheless, you know. Just the fact that people may talk Prajalpa or something and they're senior doesn't mean that we disrespect them now. No, you know. Paramatmas in their heart, they're dear to Krishna, they're dear to Prabhupada, they're dear to Guru. So who are we to, you know, reject them or disrespect them? So respect has to be there, nevertheless, you know. But we may just rather want to keep our distance, like in the hospital, if somebody has a very contagious disease or something, so then we keep our distance, you know, or here COVID, you know, social distancing. So, yeah. Or, you know, if it all depends on our consciousness, how we do things. But if we, for example, you know, can bring the conversation to a more Krishna conscious topic, if we can somehow distract that person from the Prajalpa and actually bring it in a Krishna conscious direction, you know, this is also recommended, you know. But we have to be very careful if that person is senior and if we come with some ego mood here, okay, let's talk about the Bhagavatam here, you know, then that will also just create negativity. So it has to be in a very humble way, you know. We can just inquire from that person, ask a question or something in a humble mood, not in the mood of trying to correct them or something, you know. It's a very touchy thing, you know. We have to be very careful, you know. Because, I mean, also, ultimately, this can also bring us to the question of who is senior, you know. So actually, the actual criteria for seniority is one's Krishna consciousness. But because that is not so easy to judge, that's why we take very external criteria, which are somewhat material even. You know, how many years a person has been in Krishna consciousness, you know, how old they are, when did they get first initiation, when did they get second initiation, or, you know, a managerial position is also a criteria for seniority, you know, or person's ashram, sannyas, renounced order of life is always considered senior. But these are rather external, you know, criteria. Just the amount of years, that's usually the main and foremost criteria, how we measure a person's seniority. So how long they have been in Krishna consciousness, when did they get first or second initiation. But what does that really mean? Nothing, actually, you know, because it very much depends how we apply ourselves in these years of Krishna consciousness. So just the mere time frame doesn't actually say anything, you know. But nevertheless, we have to start somewhere, you know, to see who is senior equal junior. So that's why we take these criteria, but ultimately it is, the ultimate criteria is one's genuine Krishna consciousness. Okay. Okay, what else? There we have it.
Thank you very much for the very comprehensive reply. It's really useful to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Rasalila Priya Madaji has her hand up. Can we see her smiling face also?
Asking for turning on video.
Yes. Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Where are you again from? You're from South Africa or something? Huh?
No, the U.S. I'm here in the U.S. Yeah.
Okay. So what's your question?
Thank you so much, Mataji. I appreciate the lecture. I wanted to ask, how can we avoid Prajalpa from a parental perspective? Especially, when you're a parent, of course, you have to correct your child when they're doing wrong. But we also know that, Krishna is within everyone, including the child. So how can we avoid Prajalpa from a parental perspective? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like, for example, with chastisement or correction, we did mention that unless we are a senior devotee, even in not a parental context, but just in a temple community context. So if we are a senior devotee, if it is our service, if we are mentor or department head or manager, so of course then we may have to correct a person, and then it's not Prajalpa. And definitely it is the duty of the parents, the mother, to discipline the child, to correct, to teach what is right, what is wrong. So that is not Prajalpa. Of course not, because that is her service, her duty, But yeah, I mean, also as a mother in regards to the children, she should really, be mindful to have all her talks, whatever it may be, storytelling, this, that, should all be connected always with Krishna, definitely, and not something disconnected with Krishna. So, I mean, that's what it basically means to be actually Krishna conscious, that we really see everything in connection with Krishna, even worldly matters. We connect with Krishna. We see Krishna's hand behind it. We see Krishna as the creator behind things, So even when we go for a walk in the forest or something, then we marvel at Krishna being the creator. Or when we take the kids to the zoo or something, like, for example, going to the zoo, I find this a very, innocent and harmless way of recreation for devotees, because you can check out all the different forms of life where you definitely don't want to take birth in, and you can feed those animals prasadam, and you can chant Hare Krishna to them, and so one can actually, connect so many situations, really all situations actually, always with Krishna being behind it as the supreme, enjoyer, creator, proprietor, and so then even seemingly worldly activities, they become Krishnaized, and Krishna conscious. And that art we also have to learn as a mother, not to engage in useless talk, but actually to try in a natural way, according to the child's age, to really give the child that vision that everything is connected there with Krishna and so on, like that. But definitely the correction and the chastisement of a mother is not part of Prajalpa, but nevertheless, that also has to be done in the right mood, not with envy and frustration, but always in a caring, loving way. I mean, some weeks ago we had a course about children in Krishna consciousness. And actually the recordings, I'm just thinking, I think they are on my YouTube channel. You find the recordings, you know. I have a whole 15-hour systematic course about children, how to raise children in Krishna consciousness. So you find them on my YouTube channel. Maybe Elder Prabhu, can you give that link to the YouTube channel there in the chat, and then people who are interested in that, they can find it, you know, because important thing, you know, for parents, for mothers to be very conscious how they have to encourage and the child and fan the little sparks there in the child of attraction towards Krishna, and not, you know, not put down the child and let out our own frustrations on the child and so on, you know. So there's a lot of important things there in that connection, you know. Do we have anything else? Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, there is another question. What if we, as a senior devotee, have to inform a younger one about certain faults in the behavior of another devotee in order to protect them?
Yeah, well, we have to be careful, you know, because also, I mean, these are all lessons also, which took me a lot of time to learn, you know, because people just don't keep things confidential, you know. Whatever we say to others, we have to be sure that that person tells things to others, you know. Yes. Oh my God, you know. You want to try and say something to a person with a good intention, but then that saying something maybe negative about somebody else, trying to warn them, but then that person blabbers the whole thing, you know, in the whole community, what you said about that person, and then it goes all back to you and so on, you know. So this is one principle we should remember, that whatever we say to others, as a rule, people cannot keep things confidential. No, unfortunately not. This is a big thing connected with this tendency of Prajalpa, you know, that people can't keep things for themselves. They blabber it around the whole community. And then everybody adds something to it, and then something completely else comes out, you know. So, and then it creates all, you know, resentment, and people are offended and this and that. And then it goes in circles, you know. Then people tell you what they heard, what you said about the other person. And then it's something else that you actually said. And then you feel, oh, gee, I have to go back and put this right. By the way, I didn't say that. So then that person talks that around. Oh, it goes on and on and on and on and on, you know. Oh, my God, you know. So, I mean, what can I say? I can only, you know, maybe, if you allow me, I can take my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Niranjana Swami, as an example. He never, ever talks anything negative about anybody. Yes. Never. Never. So, because he knows, you know, if he says something negative about somebody, then people are blabbering, gossiping. Oh, you know what Maharaj said? You know, terrible, you know. Yes. So, and this inability to keep things confidential, I was also wondering, how is it, you know, why can't people keep things confidential? And there's also, again, you know, the ego is mixed in, you know, because we want to show off in a subtle way that we know something that the other people don't know. And again, envy, we try to put things, other people down, and just, yeah, this satisfaction of knowing something which others don't know, and we are the first ones who break the news, and it's very much related to the ego, and on top of that, the social media, this makes it even harder to keep things confidential, So yeah, we have to really see whether this is really, really, really required to say this, something negative about another person to protect them. Maybe no need to protect them. As I was mentioning, if the person just has some negative qualities, well, we all have negative qualities, so I mean, we still have to live and work with each other. And the real protection is good sadhana, and simply trying to uplift the person so he becomes more mature and will not become affected by others. So, but if we now, warn each other of, other people's faults, and oh my God, where's an end to that? We all have faults, So it has to be seen in the concrete situation, whether it is really, really required to point this out. I mean, if the person maybe has done some criminal activities or some abuse or something, all right, then we may have to, warn the person. But if it is just some, some fault or some weakness or some, an artist, I mean, we all have them, so and we often think we have to warn others, but behind that can also be the desire to put them down and establish ourselves in a superior position, like that. Better to uplift people that they can learn to discriminate, Or we can just keep things in general, that we say, or, we preach about general principles, how to understand who is good association for us and who is bad association, so that we should seek that association which strengthens our faith in the process of Krishna consciousness, which enlivens us, which inspires us, which brings us to more hearing, more chanting, more serving. So obviously that's good association. But association which damages our faith, and we feel contaminated afterwards, and we don't feel so inspired to increase our hearing and chanting and serving, So that association is obviously bad association, So better to just speak in general terms, because really it can create a lot of disturbance in a devotee community if we as a senior person talk bad about others, Yes. Not such a good thing. Okay, here Sahadev Prabhu has his hand up. Can we unmute him?
Hare Krishna, Mother Devaki.
Hare Krishna. Where are you from, Prabhu?
Originally from Ghana, West Africa.
Okay.
But I'm in the States.
Okay.
I really enjoyed the presentation because it's a very important topic. I was very much impressed when you did say you are just giving the general principles, because I think, and this is a question for you to help me, I think that because we live in this material world, power oftentimes corrupts people. And so when people have material power, not spiritual power,
Yes.
When people have material power, there is a tendency that sometimes they may abuse and become corrupted people. So in a situation where you see clearly that your immediate leadership is going wrong.
Yeah.
And the way they're going wrong is not going to affect you as an individual person, but it's going to affect the movement in general.
Yes.
And when the movement is affected negatively, I mean, we all calling ourselves as ISKCON members also get affected. So in such a situation, when the leadership is senior to you in terms of age in devotional service, age by birth, and also superior to you in spiritual growth,
Yeah.
what do?
Very simple. We have Vaishnav etiquette. So Vaishnav etiquette says, if we see something in a senior person, we should go to his authority and report. That is actually our duty, our responsibility, that we say, we share, our heart, and we report this. And then we leave it up to that authority of that senior person to deal with it. Then we have done our duty, and it is not our matter anymore. Because maybe we simply imagine all these things, could be. The mind comes up with so many things. The mind speculates and projects and jumps to conclusions and. So maybe it's all our imagination, maybe not. So that's the proper Vaishnav etiquette. It's definitely not our position to confront a senior person on this. We have to go to his authority. And then we let them deal with it. Let them decide whether this has to be addressed or not. Because, as a younger devotee, we can actually not really comprehend what takes place on the senior level. And sometimes I have been in situations where a senior person is doing some, serious mistakes. But, his authority, the GBCs, for example, still will not address it because they may have some good reason. They may understand, well, if we address this, then, maybe, the person cannot do their service anymore. So for the time being, maybe we have to keep that person anyway in his position. And so we cannot judge. We cannot always understand what really takes place there. So therefore, Vaishnav etiquette says we simply report this to the senior person's authority. And then we've done our duty, and we don't follow up and push and this and that, but we just let them deal with it. And I mean, from a mundane point of view, this would sound inappropriate. The person may think, oh, why don't you come to me? Why do you go behind my back to my senior and dob me in? But no, that's the mundane vision of it. The proper, correct Vaishnav etiquette is that we do exactly that. We go to that person's senior authority and we reveal our mind and let them research, like that. Okay. Do we have anything else, or was that it?
Well, Mother Devaki, thank you for the answer. But what about if the case involves the highest authority that you need to report to? And then you have nobody else to go beyond that particular authority.
No, not
or
that.
You just report and you leave it.
So, I mean, every GBC is, under the body of the GBCs. So for many things, there is still different committees and persons responsible, like Prajalpa Maharaj, is in charge of Guru disciples, sannyas, etiquettes, and this and that, so there is ways and channels where we can report things, And also every GBC, they have God brothers you know, so who maybe serve in the same area or something. So we all serve under somebody, you know, there's nobody who has nobody above them, you know.
Okay.
Yes. So no problem, no problem. You know.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Anything else, Eldar Prabhu?
Sri Lata Mataji wanted to say something.
Okay, can we see her smiling face?
Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
It's an honor to have your darshan, Mataji.
Where are you from?
Vancouver. I derived a lot of pleasure from driving you to the airport after the classes. I
Okay. Hare Krishna.
You're just not recognizing me, going great. That's
So-
all right. I don't expect you. Thank you for your class.
Yes, I have to admit my memory is a little, you know.
Hari Nistar, Hari Nistar from Mauritius, and myself, we went together.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just to recall.
Okay, okay.
Money exchange and then to the airport.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for joining us.
So nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Thank
Being
you.
well. Stay safe, Mataji.
Thank you. I hope I will get some chance again sometime in the future to come to Vancouver and North
Yes.
America and wherever.
It was special, very special. It'll be great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I think we'll conclude our session here. We actually have at the moment here Kadambakana Swami in Simhachalam. I'm in Germany, Simhachalam. And Kadambakana Swami is with us here and he is giving initiations there today. And
Ah,
yes, yes. So I will rush over and have a look if I still catch the end of the initiation ceremony. And tomorrow is his Vyasa Puja actually. He's celebrating it tomorrow. His actual Vyasa Puja is the end of May, but we will have his Vyasa Puja here tomorrow. And a few devotees are here and it's mainly online. So some nectar is flowing here. Yeah, so I may give something again in 2 weeks' time. And I usually announce things on my Facebook page, Institute for Spiritual Culture, you know, Facebook/Institute for Spiritual Culture. So there you will find the announcements for further seminars in the future. And I usually send them to different devotees and request them to pass them on and share them. So in whatever way you heard about the seminar today, you may hear in the future again about other seminars. So yes, from time to time, I will offer something and I hope I will get the opportunity to have your participation again and your association and be able to offer some little service in that way to all of you. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us and I wish you a nice weekend and a nice time. And yes, please be introspective and catch yourself here doing this Prajalpa. I guess what I didn't express is that, yeah, what do we do? It's a very similar thing like any kind of transformational you know, work, internal work. The first step is always hearing about it, then desiring to actually make some change, then reflecting, being introspective and honest, you know, that we're really catching ourselves. Or why did I say this thing now? Did I really have to talk about this? And then we catch ourselves doing the wrong thing, you know, oh, again, I was criticizing, fault finding. And then, you know, we lament and we cry out to Krishna, Nishingadev. I'm at the best place here in Simhachalam. We have big Lord Nishingadev here. you know, and actually cry out to Krishna or Lord Nrsimhadev to uproot these tendencies, you know, because they're all based actually on envy. Ultimately, envy for ego, and we, out of our own strength, we can actually not free ourselves from this. We need the Lord's help, but we have to really bitterly cry out to him and beg him to, you know, uproot these things in our heart, and then he will do the job. So introspection has to be there, and we have to catch ourselves doing the wrong thing, and then cry out to Krishna, please help me. I want to give up this tendency, you know. Otherwise, we can walk around with it for lifetimes, you know, and we will not have any improvement there. So we have to work on these things consciously and transform our patterns of behaviors, really, you know. Yes. Okay, so on that note, please use this discussion to actually do some internal work and reflect more and introspect and actually, you know, kick this tendency out of your life, you know. I'm working on it. I'm also not free of it, but this is really working when we introspect and we, you know, catch ourselves and we lament and cry out to Krishna to free us from it. That really works. If we do that internal work, then sooner or later we come to a situation where, oh, so this time I didn't have to respond to this and I didn't blabber things around, and I actually managed to keep it confidential and not show off that I know what you don't know and all this, you know. So yeah, but we have to be willing to pay this price of doing this internal work, you know. Okay, so on this note, I will say Hare Krishna to all of you and thank you
Hare
for
Krishna.
your participation. Srila Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
Srila Bhaktivinoda ki,
Jai.
Gaura Premanand
Hare
ki,
Krishna.
Hare Hare Hare
Devaki ki jai.
Hare
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 Krishna.
Krishna.